A huge thing that helped me is pain.
Yair Brachiyahu has been breaking the internet with his street-style personal growth content, flying from a few thousand followers to over 100,000 followers in just under 2 weeks. His love and enthusiasm shows. Yair is a friend, a family man, and dedicated to spiritual growth. He brings so much joy to our world.
One thing that was big is I was so attached to like business. Like I have to succeed as a business person to be worthy of love.
I didn't inherently feel like enough inside of myself.
He still loves me. We just met and he's still here regardless. Okay, so there's something more valuable about me than just me doing business.
And from there, I was able to realize that my strength, my value comes from within.
And then the voice came and said, it may be painful, but this is what's meant for you. I finally got to a place where I was like, you know what? This is so painful to be in this that I'm okay with whatever the answer is.
To give you guys some awesome perspective of who Yair is and just some qualities about him, I want to talk about when Yair and I met. So a good friend of ours, Gome, introduced us via phone call. So I was living in Jacksonville at the time. Yair was living in Miami, and we're both in the real estate business. So we hop on a call, and we're talking about real estate, and we're like, hey, you know, I want to do this in real estate. You want to do this in real estate. But by the end of the call, we were just talking about personal growth, the books that we've read, what we really care about in life through that spiritual journey, through learning, through growth, through like there's something greater out there than just this real estate. There's something greater out there than just business. And so we connected at such a deep level. It was like, wow, this is so cool. We were both looking to progress in our business career. So I was looking for someone to come work with me. Yair was doing some wholesaling in Miami, and he was like, oh, you know, I'm thinking about doing something else. He had some other opportunities lined up. And so I told Yair, like, dude, I've got a house to myself, a few extra bedrooms. Come on up and let's just see what happens. Yair hopped in his car, and 3 days later, he hopped in his car and he moved into my house in Jacksonville. We had just met via phone call, had never spoken before that. And now Yair came and was living in my house. That just gives you a perspective of the type of guy that he is, the way that he's willing to come at life and just say, you know what? We only live once. Like, why not take this opportunity? Why not take this gut feel that I know something special is about to happen and let's go for it? And I'm getting emotional just talking about it, thinking about it. But Yair, he's shown that time and time again, that he's willing to just do that. He's willing to just take life and be like, yo, we live once. I'm not going to let this waste. I'm going to take advantage of every single opportunity that I have that resonates with me, that I care about. And that's what I really, really respect about you. I love you, man.
Thank you, brother. I love you too.
Coming into, giving some value to the listeners and getting into this conversation. Man, I remember you coming out to Jacksonville and you being a completely different person than you are now. But I remember even in those first like month, 2 months, like, dude, you went through a revolution, man. Like eyes open, like freaking mind completely shifting. And you just were going through these like evolutions like so fast. So I wanted to ask, were there any specific conversations that we had like in the beginning when you first came out that really helped awaken you, that helped just open your eyes? And what did you gain from those conversations? What lessons did you learn?
One thing that was big is I was so attached to like business. Like I have to succeed as a business person to be worthy of love. Basically, that was the pattern. You know, only when I succeed in business, people are going to like me. People are going to love me. I'll finally be happy. All this stuff I was running. And just within the first few days of us hanging out, you were like, well, Yair, once you grow and evolve, you might find happiness in being a mountain climber. That's literally what he said. And I was like, in my head, I was like, this guy's a clown. Like, I'm a business, I'm this and I'm that. Like, it's so egotistical about like this idea I had, when really what I was trying to do is make my dad proud, because my dad saw me as like this person that was going to do business. And I was doing it from that frame of like, I wanted my dad to be proud. And then one day, me and Evan were in the dog park. This was the moment that really like things changed big. I started having doubts and hesitations about the business world. Like, oh, is this really what I want to be doing? Specifically about real estate. You know, do I really want to be doing these cold calls and all these things? Like, is this really what I'm passionate about? And I started to like take my foot off the gas pedal of like wanting it so much. And me and Evan were in the dog park in the morning with his dog. And I told Evan, I'm like, yo, I'm kind of feeling a little bit of doubt. I'm wondering if this is what I really want to do. I'm just in this like personal growth mode right now, really taking time to myself. And I was so used to like people saying like, people that I was working with to be like, yo, you got to get your shit together. We're doing this thing, right? Like kind of try to get me back into the business mode. But he just said, it's all good, man. Like, if you need 6 months, take 6 months. I got you, bro. Like, I was shocked because we just met like for 2 weeks already. And I moved in with the frame of we're going to do real estate together. We're going to make money together. And when I told you, hey, is this really what I even want to do? And you were super supportive of that. I mean, that meant the world to me at the time. And that was the big one. That was the moment that really was like, whoa, like he still loves me. We just met and he's still here regardless. Okay, so there's something more valuable about me than just me doing business. And I think the big thing that you saw was our connection on the spiritual level, on the personal growth level. We both had aligned values with that stuff. So that was a huge paradigm shift from the beginning of our relationship, from people value me for what I do to people value me for who I am.
That's so interesting. And it was so easy for me to have those conversations with you because I had just gone through that same paradigm shift myself. Because previous to that, maybe a year before, a year, 2 years, a year and a half, something like that, I was going through my own struggle where I was in the same position, where I was out there trying to succeed in business to prove to my parents that I am enough. And I feel like that's been a common theme that I've heard from a lot of creators, a lot of big business people, this constant drive to be enough, right? For our parents, for ourselves, for our grandparents, for our whole lineage. And it took me actually getting to a low point to come around and realize that it just wasn't sustainable. Like for me, I moved to Jacksonville to, basically make this cool food and beverage concept, and I segmented into real estate. I'm like, I'm going to buy all of Springfield. I'm going to turn this whole neighborhood around. But the intention, my why behind it was, it was all ego driven. It was all, I want to be the guy that did it. And why? Because I didn't inherently feel like enough inside of myself. And so when some deals fell apart, COVID hit, a bunch of deals fell apart, and I was left with, all this work that I did with nothing, feeling depressed, waking up at 10, 11 a.m., wondering like, what the fuck is life? I really hit a low point. From there, for me, I hired a coach, and I discovered this book, Letting Go. And from there, I was able to realize that my strength, my value comes from within and not from the external. So when when we talked and you showed up on my doorstep and you were going through this thing and I just saw the inherent love and value within yourself, I mean, it was just like, to me, it was like, yeah, let's help him grow, man. And to me, it was just natural. It was just like, yes, this is awesome. Like, and from there, it was so cool how our relationship developed, how, we were doing some stuff in business, but then, we were getting into like our talks every day at 6 p.m. We had our 6 p.m. talks and just gaining insights. And I just remember remember learning so much from you. So it was really cool how our how we evolved from, almost me being your big brother to at times me being your little brother. Do you remember, just talking about that little brother concept, do you remember some other like big moments where you turned into big brother? Like once you had those big growth spurts and then different ideas and concepts that you taught me once you had kind of gone through your stuff?
One that comes to mind, I would say, is the Alberry thing that you were going through. Like when Evan mentioned, he moved to Jacksonville to start the outdoor food hall and, do business, and you did well with that. Like you were achieving things that you set out to achieve, and you worked really hard, and you still did it from that place of proving your parents and proving to everyone that you were worthy and good enough and all this crap that you had behind it. So even though you achieved certain things you're looking to achieve, that looking for validation outside was still the motive behind it. So a few months of me and Evan living together, he came to me with the doubts about his Alberry project, right? Just like I came to him with the doubts about real estate and business and all that, he came to me with the doubts about Alberry. I had been in a particular coaching modality that I'm still in right now. And so I started noticing the certain patterns. And I remember we had I think two-hour conversations over like a few days. And eventually you realize oh, wow, I really have been doing this to prove myself. And the reason I've lost the motivation is because I actually achieved what I set out to achieve, and it's done. Like it's time to move forward from that. And so I think that's when that was one moment that's coming where I turned into big brother.
I remember that conversation because it was hard for me to really see, and having a good friend and someone that you're committed to personal growth with, to have that perspective is just so valuable. But I remember that specific conversation, and I was so lost in fear. And it was fear because that was something I was set out to do. That was something oh, I'm going to achieve this. This was something I set a goal towards. Again, that idea of proving to the rest of the world I'm good enough, doing things for other people. I started that journey and I achieved what I did because I loved it and I loved what I was doing. But then it shifted from me loving it and loving what I was doing to reaching a certain point to prove to other people. And when that came in, you helped me realize that it had reached that point, and you really helped me realize hey, it was time to move on. And I feel that's such an interesting concept, right? Because we're always figuring out these things in life. Hey, I'm working on this thing. Is this something that I choose to be persistent with, to be dedicated with? Because we talk a lot about discipline, right? We talk a lot about, hey, it's important to continue to do things that you don't necessarily want to do to achieve your goals, to achieve your highest potential in life, to achieve love, to achieve passion. Sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do. Do you have some sort of perspective that could help understand, how do you make a choice? Hey, this is something that I choose to put discipline into and go through, or this is a project that's now time to cut. It's time to move on. How do you make a choice like that?
I just ask, is this aligned for me? The answer always comes, man. The times in my life where I asked and I didn't listen to the answer was the time where I delayed it.
Who are you asking?
It's just asking a question within myself, right? People will say they're asking it to God, they're asking it to life, they're asking it to their higher self, all these different names to say it, right? But I'm really just asking a question within me. And when I'm really calm and I'm okay with either the yes or the no, the answer comes. Now, if I want the answer to be yes or I want the answer to be no, that's when it's oh my God, what do I do? What are they going to think of me? All that's when that's going on, right? But once I can get to a point where I'm you know what? God, life, universe, whatever you guys want to call it, I'm okay with this being yes or no. That's when the clarity comes in. And I feel as I've started to trust my intuition in that yes or no, my clarity's starting to grow and grow each and every day. And now I can an opportunity comes, I can ask and I get an answer every time.
See, that's so interesting when we talk about the concept of asking ourselves, right? Because I've been in positions, I'm sure you have, and probably a lot of listeners, a lot of us have been, should I do this, right? Ask yourself the question. And the mind can go, well, you could do this or you can't, and this, but if you do this, then this is going to happen, and this, and this. And we'll go for days, months, it could be even years on some of these choices with our mind going absolutely bonkers. So from what I'm understanding from you, what I'm getting, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or tell me if this is the truth, it's about getting into a beautiful, calm, loving, joyful, emotional state. Forget what's going to actually happen on the external world. Forget the outcome. Forget all that stuff. Just sit. Let's breathe. Let's feel joy. Let's get into this space of joy and love. And from there, intuition comes in, and then we can create from that perspective.
Yeah. Just breathe, ask, and trust whatever answer it is. And that's it. And move forward. It's really simple. Be okay with whatever answer. Breathe, ask, and be okay with whatever answer.
How do you just be okay with whatever answer? Because I know some people, I've done it at times as well, where I'm just like, that's the answer? No, fuck no, that's not the answer.
Exactly. That's when you get screwed.
So how do we trust? How do we do it?
So now we're going back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation with validation. Why would I resist the answer? Because I'm trying to prove myself. I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to get love from outside. It really, all these patterns come down to trying to get love from the outer world. Once I realize that's an illusion, I can start to really trust my voice on a deeper level. And also, once I trust the voice when it's the hardest to do it, that's when I gain tremendous amounts of confidence and trust in my inner guidance. So, for example, when me and Evan were thinking of ending our business, and I was also in a relationship at the time with this woman that Evan introduced me to. It was a toxic relationship. There's a lot of patterns going on there, which I could share, but that would be another long thing. Anyways, I was in that relationship, and I was with Evan in the business. And for a while, I would say a few months, I had a no for it. Like, it was getting to a point where it was like, yo, leave, right? But I also wanted to stay. So it was like, leave, don't leave. What if you leave and then you made a mistake? Well, what if you stay and like this just isn't aligned for you? And it was like this battle going on in myself, right? And I couldn't hear the yes or the no because I was so attached to the answers. I wanted it to be a yes, but then at times I wanted it to be no. And I was like in my head about all of it, right? And after a few months of pain, as you can imagine, of going through all that, I finally got to a place where I was like, you know what? This is so painful to be in this doubt land that I'm okay with whatever the answer is. And I remember, dude, it was one night at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and I just sat with myself and I said, God, like whatever this is, just tell me. And it was about the relationship. And I said, is this relationship aligned for me? Like, is she for me? No. Like, it was just no. There was no other thing about it. It's just the clearest no I've ever heard in my life, bro, up until that point. It was like, no. And I was like, okay, will she ever be for me? No. So what do I do? Leave. When? Now. I was like, whoa, this is like, and I was like, and then the voice came and said, it may be painful, but this is what's meant for you. Like, this is what you need to do. And then the second I made the choice, I was going to do that. And I'm like, this is done. Like, I'm moving forward from this relationship and I'm moving on with my life. I could see my intuition and my understanding of all the patterns that were going on in the relationship, how I created that relationship in the first place, the patterns I had with my mom that led to the relationship, what I needed to do moving forward. all of it opened up when I trusted the voice. It was in an instant. Like the second I said, okay, I gotta know, so I'm ending it, moving on from it. That's when I walked into the door and all the new possibilities opened up. But when I was in the doubt and I wasn't willing to trust, I couldn't see what was in that room. I couldn't see what was on the other side. I was just in the current familiar room I was in. But as soon as I trusted, the new room opened up, and the arcade and the beautiful trees and the beautiful, symphony. But I had to walk forward even though I felt scared. And as soon as I did, like I said, I could see clearly what patterns created everything. And it made it really easy to walk away from it. Like in past relationships, with all the doubt and all the confusion, it was like, man, I was still in it after the relationship ended because I was still in all that crap. But moving on from things or doing things with the clarity, it just makes it so easy. And so now another tip is if there is that resistance and that like constant battle going on about something, it's probably a no. It's probably a no. Because when it's a yes, man, it's like, I may not want to do something or I may have resistance to doing it, but deep down, like, it's like, I choose to do this though. But when it's like, no, it's, yeah. It depends on the thing. It depends on the thing.
On that I would definitely challenge you because starting this podcast, for example, creating this podcast, there are fears, there are doubts, there are things there's some inner turmoil as you move into something else that's exciting. So that I would say maybe, for some of the listeners, like, just because you're having some of those doubts and thoughts, it's okay. But I really want to come back to that point that you made where you just come back, you become clear, you become peaceful and focused, and let your intuition guide you on a yes or no. And then from there, boom, make the choice and commit, because so many of us are so afraid to make the choice, to make the difficult choice, whatever it is. And then we're stuck in these pattern loops of just thinking, and we can't make any progress in our life because we're not committed, because we're afraid to end that relationship, end that business, or on the other side, actually commit to that relationship and actually commit to that business. And you know what? It's okay, because sometimes, and I've seen this as well, you can go and commit to something, right? And make that choice. And then you know what? 3 months later, maybe there's another doubt, right? And then you can commit again. And the thing is that's okay, because you're learning through that process. But at a certain point, your intuition, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And at a certain point, the pain, the suffering, the intuition, and if you're not able to cut that tie, I've seen people that will live with that pain and suffering forever.
Exactly.
And so I respect you and your ability to be able to, make those cuts, make those ties. And what's so beautiful about you is like how those things have completely changed your life.
Make the choice that you don't want to make. That's it. Yeah. Because if I want something so much and like I'm like resisting the other answer, it's probably the one I'm resisting, man. It's probably the one I'm resisting if I have so much resistance to it. Whatever I'm resisting is probably what's meant for me. Every fucking time, man. It's like you had a resistance to starting the podcast, you do it anyways. That's what I've seen. Like, do what you don't want to do to become the person you've always wanted to be. You got to do what you don't want to do. At the time, I didn't want to end the relationship. I didn't want to leave the business. I was there for 2 years. It was familiar. It was like, oh, I've been doing this for a while. Oh, if I leave, what if I feel pain? What if I don't know what to do? What if this, all that, right? All the fear on the note. Once I got to a point where I was like, I trust. Like, if it's a no, it's a no. That's when the no came in clearly. And I was like, oh, obviously this is a no. Like, I couldn't see it before when I was in the fear, man. But once I made the no, once I said no, all that stuff fell off, guys. Like, it was the next day, the next few days, I was looking at it from a completely different lens. Like, of course it's a no. I have my whole life ahead of me. I'm young. I'm this. All these things started flooding in that I completely couldn't see when I was living in the doubt and the fear and wanting it to be this and wanting it to be that, bro.
Dude, that is amazing. Because I'm looking at you, right? You're 23, right? 23? 22. 22 years old. Dude, young, man. Like, young. I'm 31. Sometimes I think I'm old, right? But, dude, I'm young. To put it in perspective of life, average expectancy, I don't know what exactly is, but, like, we're going to live to, like, 90, 100, right? Maybe manifest a little bit more of good years of good life. And when some listeners are sitting here at 20 years old, 18, 20, 30, and they've been in this fear of trying to prove to their parents, prove to their significant other, prove to their partner that they're good enough, and they're showing up to a job every single day that they hate, what do you have to lose? That's how I look at it sometimes. I feel like you look at that too, is like, what do I have to lose? Let's take the jump. Let's take the risk, because I feel like it's the riskier thing to not take the risk. It's the riskier thing to sit in something that we hate, even though it's familiar. Even though it's familiar, why be familiar in pain when we can make that leap? And so I've seen it with you now, right? And coming into this next phase and next journey, right? You were in a relationship that wasn't serving you. We had a business together that the underlying energy was not being enough and trying to make money and do business to prove to your dad and to prove to my parents that we were good enough. And making those jumps and those leaps that you've done now, I mean, you moved back to Miami. Now you're actually doing something every day that you truly love and care about. Can you expand more about how making that choice to walk away, like what opportunities and perspectives and lessons that's opened up in your life now?
Yeah. Another thing about making the choice, a huge thing that helped me is pain. So many people are trying to avoid pain, and I did too. And that is another thing that stopped me from being able to hear my intuition. Pain is one of my greatest teachers. Life brings pain to give guidance, right? So instead of trying to avoid pain and avoid the pain, really, go into the pain. Feel the pain of where I am in whatever situation. And then it becomes really easy to trust, because it's like, well, I'm already feeling pain in this situation. Am I really happy right now? No. So whatever the answer gives me is probably going to be best, because it's going to be better than this. So pain really comes to give that nudge sometimes of like, hey, something's up here. Like, don't just avoid that and try to have sex or drink or party or going out with your friends or go work and make money to avoid the pain. Like, the pain is here to tell us something, to ask ourselves those deeper questions so we can actually hear those yes or no answers and make a different choice. And 100%, once I made the choice and trusted myself, that's when all these different possibilities opened up. And, you know, my mentor, Mark, has said this to me, which is a really powerful saying. Every step forward I take, if I feel fear and doubt, every step forward I take regardless of that, every step is building my faith. And I was like, wow. I thought trust meant I don't feel fear. That's a lie. Trust means I feel fear and I do it anyways. Trust means I feel so scared to jump off that cliff, but I jump off that cliff. That's trust. That's trust. And trust and courage and bravery and confidence are all interwoven with each other. Oh, I feel really scared to talk to that girl. My heart's beating, right? oh my God, what if this, what if that, what is she going to think of me? What if I stutter? What, I do it anyways. I walk. Dude, that's what builds the trust and intuition, and all that stuff is so correlated with, you don't want to do it anyways. That's the game.
I love how you're talking about your relationship with fear, with pain, right? Because so many of us fear the fear. We hate the pain. We're so avoidant of it. We suppress it. As you mentioned, we drink alcohol, smoke weed, scroll social media. We distract ourselves constantly from feeling those emotions. And if we do feel the emotions, we're so fucking shit scared of them that we can't actually even process them. And then it's just this underlying brewing thing that just continues to build and build and build. And then all of a sudden we're just like fucking like overwhelmed in pain until it manifests as heart disease, freaking other diseases. Like it comes out, and people are wondering like why we're so unhealthy and unhappy. And it's interesting because pain and fear and shame and guilt and these quote unquote negative emotions, they are part of the human experience. We all face it. We all have it at times. And so to actually accept it and love those feelings is quite powerful. And that's where I found so much value in me is like, oh, I see it coming up. Cool. I'm okay with it. I accept it, right? I breathe through it. And from there, when I accept it, then from there, I can choose a different emotion. It's actually easier to feel love and joy and gratitude once I actually just let the fear come up and I'm like, okay with it, right? And sometimes, this is coming back to what you're saying, we can build confidence through action. We can build trust through action, right? So the fear comes up. If we're so fucking afraid, we're just going to be there fucking trying to push it down, whatever. Let the fear come up, see it, be like, all right, it's all good. Let's go. And then boom, now we're building faith. We're building confidence. So this is, I think, something we can dive deeper into, which I find very interesting. Because I think we had a previous conversation, and we've both been talking about how this has been a main thing that we've been seeing in our lives in terms of growing our respective businesses, our respective social media presence. So give us some examples right now of how you've been, facing these fears, like how they've come up, how you've dived into them, and how you've learned, progressed, grown, and become a better, stronger, happier person because of it.
So if I'm going to dissect it, let's say, okay, I have a vision of where I choose to be, who I choose to become, what characteristics I have 4 years from now, 5 years from now, like what my trajectory is moving forward. And there's certain things that have been popping up in my mind to do them. And fear would come up like, oh, but I don't want to do that. I feel scared. What are people going to think of me? All this stuff. And for a few months, these things were coming up in my mind, and I didn't do them. I resisted them. I did other things. I scrolled social media. I ate food. I stayed in the house all day, distracted myself, worked out. Things that are like easy for me that I've already done. Instead of going and interviewing people, because I felt scared to do that, I made talking head videos like this, just talking to the camera. Those are good, right? But that felt easy for me at that point. It felt familiar. So what really got me to make the change is sitting in the pain. I was like, okay, so I feel scared to do these things. How does it feel when I hold back because I feel scared? Man, my energy's low. I have all these thoughts in my head. I feel embarrassed about myself. I feel sorry for myself. All these feelings associated with that, right? Okay. Yeah, I could keep doing this. Or how would it feel if I took action? Man, I'd feel proud of myself. My energy would go up. I'd feel just proud, confident. I'd be one step closer to becoming that person I see in my future. And then I just started making the choices. You know, one big one was I felt scared to talk with girls, like to just go up to girls and talk to them. So I started doing that for a little bit. For a few days, I just literally made an intention to go and like find them and talk with them. Not just spontaneous stuff. Like I would go do it on purpose. Did that for a little bit until it was like, okay, well, I could do it. Is this really something I choose to keep doing every day? Probably no, but I did it. I walked forward anyways. Interviewing people, going and interviewing girls for my social media and interviewing people on the beach, just going up to people, hey, could I ask you a question for my video? I started doing that. And I started realizing every time I didn't want to do it and I did it anyways, I just felt like this, it just feels like this weight gets lifted off my shoulder. Like, oh man, like it's fun, it's easy, I'm evolving. Because really like anything that comes up that I'm resisting doing or I feel scared to do, the only reason why those feelings are coming up about it is because deep down, like that's the thing I'm meant to do to become who I choose to be. Like I'll just say right here, another thing I feel scared to do is skydive, bungee jumping, all that. Like that stuff is just terrifying to me. And I haven't done it. But I know as I keep moving on in my journey, eventually I'm probably going to do it because it's one of those things that's going to keep coming up that eventually is like, all right, well, am I going to keep holding back or am I just going to do it? Because every time I do it, there's something that opens up and that builds trust. Because there's so many things I felt scared to do. There's so many things I didn't want to do in my life, right? But every time, like I said, I walk forward, that faith keeps building, that faith keeps building, that faith keeps building until I could walk onto that freaking bungee jump thing. And I've done so many other things at this point that I had a yes for, Remember, trust that intuition. And I got, okay, yes. And I kept doing it. I kept saying, wow, I keep evolving. I keep growing. I'm alive. I'm more alive than I used to be. Well, then it gets easy to do that next thing and that next thing and that next thing and that next thing. Because just because you jumped off the cliff one time doesn't mean you jumped off the cliff and that's it. It's done. Fairy tale, roses, sunshine, and rainbows for the rest of your life. You're never going to feel scared again. You're never going to feel sad again. That's bullshit. That's the illusion. I jump off and I do it again. 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 And I keep becoming because that is the process of why we're here, I feel. It's to continue to evolve and at the same time enjoy the process of evolving. There's no destination. It's a journey.
Dude, mind blown. Like confidence, trust, yeses, like that whole conversation, just there's so much insight and wisdom in it. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And so now in this segment, as Yair's going to take a pee, we'll have a word from our sponsors. We actually don't have any sponsors yet. It's our first podcast, but we are looking for sponsors as we grow. So feel free to reach out because we're going to make this thing awesome. And by getting sponsors, we'll be able to fund this, make this bigger, help it grow, and just make a bigger impact. So I'm really grateful to be able to be on this journey. As Yair was talking about, you know, in this segment, really diving in for things that we say yes to. And I have a big yes for this. My intuition says yes, 100% across the board. And there's that fear. There's that emotion that comes up that says, you know, are you really worthy of this? Are you up for it? Can you, like, what value can you drive to people? So those fears and doubts will come up, but I've got a full-on yes for this. So I'm grateful to continue to grow. I'm grateful for what this is becoming. I'm grateful for the sheer process of this. So that was the word from our sponsors. The sponsor is the Fulfilled Being podcast because we're the current sponsor of our own podcast, and that's how we roll. Fear and trust and yes, dude, that is amazing. So, you know, you talking about your journey moving through this, it reminds me so much of my own, what I'm currently going through. So I've been working on this creative vision that I have to really bring personal growth and spirituality and all the things that I've been learning out to the world. And, those fears and doubts come up. Those fears in my head that say, what do I have to give the world? Will this be successful? Will I continue to go with this because I've worked on other projects that I've been so inspired about, and then I've brought them to the 50-yard line, and then the intuition tells me no, this isn't it, and it's time to move on. So these fears and doubts have come in as I've been embarking on this journey. I'm also creating music now, rap music, right? Who am I, this like white boy from Aventura, to go out and create rap music? It's about spirituality and personal growth, and it's really cool stuff, and I'm excited to be working on it. But these fears and doubts come in, and this concept of facing those and actually doing it and building that confidence and trust through it. So just with setting up this podcast, right, there's plenty of objectives of things that come up throughout the process where it's just like you kind of smack your head, and it's like a hurdle that I choose to get through. And there's some fear and doubt that comes in. So buying all the equipment, which equipment do I buy? Then actually getting the equipment. I knew nothing about audio engineering before this, and figuring out the cords, the cables, the software, all this. And that brought up a lot of fear. That brought up even the sheer thing of like, I got to go and figure this out today, was bringing up fear. But I've learned through discipline, tying in discipline to this. At the beginning, call it like 20 days ago, I started incorporating saying, I'm going to work on my podcast, getting everything set up, an hour a day. And I'm going to work on music 30 minutes a day. And the day before, I set out what I'm going to accomplish the next day in each of those things. So I got the time period, and I've got what I'm going to do. And so that fear comes up. That fear is like, and in the past, maybe I would have let the fear get the best of me. And then guess what? That decreases my confidence. That decreases my trust. That decreases my trust in myself. And at the end of the day, wouldn't allow me to get to where I choose to go. But I've been tackling them head on. I've been like, the challenge comes up, the fear comes up, I go, and as you mentioned, I go and I do it. And it's been every single day, I gain more confidence in myself. I gain more trust in myself. I gain more vision in it. But the big thing that I'm really seeing, that I'm really coming to understand is you need the combination of that, and you need the combination of the big yes. Because in our business, Alberry Real Estate, when we were doing the brokerage, right, we incorporated elements of that. We incorporated, dude, you were very disciplined in that time. But at the end of the day, if you are being disciplined and putting yourself through and conquering your fears, but you're not going in the right direction, it's like, it's really difficult to continue to maintain that. You can do it for a certain amount of time. You can build trust in your word, but the meaning just isn't there. And if you don't have meaning, if you don't have an understanding, if you don't have something like a sun, a gravitational thing pulling you towards where you're going to go, it's just hard to stay on those tracks, I feel like. So I've found that for myself, like having that big yes and coming to understand that has been so big. So coming into that, how do you find your yes? So we understand how you, if you're in something, we've talked about the yes and the no, right? On what that is. So now let's say you say no to this, and now you're sitting here. How do you know what's your yes? How do you know what it is that you choose to grow into? Where you choose to face your fears, like what fears you choose to face, and go and conquer those, and know that you're on your right path, on the path that you choose.
So instead of looking at the yes from a perspective of this external 3D physical plane we're in, because one thing that you said that I see different is you talked about how you had all these things you have done in the past, all these different opportunities that you would take to the 50-yard line, and then you would say no, you had a no, so you moved on. Maybe on this 3D external plane, it looked like you got the business or whatever it was to the 50-yard line, But you as an individual have never stopped at the 50-yard line. You've continued to go, and you way past the 100 mark. I mean, you've hit many football fields already if we're looking at it from that perspective. You know, forward and back, you've hit it many times. So the yes is who I'm becoming in the process. The yes is where am I in 4 years, 5 years from now? Who am I becoming? Who is the character in my new movie? Who do I choose to be? And is this opportunity right now getting me one step closer or one step farther from that person? If it's one step closer, then move forward. Maybe 5 days, 10 days from now, I might have something different I choose to do. But the discipline is in moving one step forward every day towards becoming the person in the new movie. That's it. That's the yes. And every single thing you've done up until this point has gotten you one step closer to the yes. That's what this whole personal growth thing's about. The Alberry thing, the real estate, the podcast, all these different skills, right? Until one day you get so clear that you do something in this external world too with enough meaning and enough passion and enough vision with all these other combined skills that you've developed with all the 50-yard line opportunities, where now you just become this big success. And everyone's like, wow, he just became successful. No, he didn't just become successful. He spent all these 10, 15, 20 years, however long, maybe just 2 years, becoming the person, getting all these different attributes, getting all these different skills, and applied it into this new thing, and now it's successful. It's like my friend Daniel. He has a social media. It's called Dan Cooked It. He makes cooking videos. This guy's getting, one of his views got 5 million views, one of his cooking videos. He's got more views on other types of videos, but I'm just talking about specifically the cooking. I was literally talking about this with him the other day on how some of his friends from the past are looking at his stuff now like, wow, like you just blew up all of a sudden, right? And now he was saying, well, no, I didn't just blow up all of a sudden. Like I've been making videos and in the beginning, like no one saw my stuff. And I was like, dude, what about when you were making music 5 years ago, 10 years ago? What about even before you started making videos for social media when you were like, you were still recording stuff and you still did all these other things way before you even started social media content that led you to even being successful. So it's not even just like in the beginning of his business, he was getting a little bit of views and that's when he was starting to build it up. No, he was building up his whole life, bro. Everything he went through, every single thing in his schooling days and his childhood, all these different things got him to this point now where he has the skill sets to get the millions of views that he's getting. So once we look at it from that lens, then it becomes very clear.
Mm-hmm. I heard this interesting thing about bamboo. So bamboo, it creates a network underground, and it grows for the underground network grows for 5 years before you see even a sprout. And then it shoots up. I don't have the exact quote, but 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 feet, something like that within the first 3 months. So it just goes from all the roots and everything is growing underground and then it just fires. But on top of that was like an interesting insight. But what you said is just resonated so deeply, which is at the end of the day, it's not what we're choosing to do on the external. It's not about how high those bamboo shoots actually shoot up. That's all proving to other people. That's like what's showing on the external world. It's about growth is the goal. It's about the spiritual journey. It's about having fun in the fucking process. Because if we think about it, we're growing this underground network of roots for 5 years. And if we're sitting there fucking watering these roots, right? And then we're just there and we're like, I need the fucking bamboo. And you spend 5 years just fucking like looking at it like, I need the bamboo. I need the bamboo. Right? We're going to fucking miss 5 years of our life. Completely miss 5 years of our life. And I've done it, dude. I've done it myself, fucking staring at the thing, saying, I need the bamboo. I was like, that is mentally crazy, dude. And I feel like it's something that a lot of us go through, but we just, instead of doing that, we have the opportunity to realize, dude, the process is part of it, man. If we actually go and we like water it and we like feel the energy of the roots underground and be like, dude, it's so beautiful. Maybe we like look up and see a little bit of rain coming down. Like, man, the rain is coming and feeding these roots, and just feel grateful for it. And look at the trees around and just enjoy the process around it. Now we're living our lives. We have one life. We have one life, dude, that we know about. There might be more. There might be other things after life. All this stuff no one can prove. We don't know. All that I know is we've got one life in this form. I'm 30 years old. If I live till 90, I've lived a third of it. Dude, I'm going to live this life. I'm not going to spend 5 years in fucking stress. Like, give me the fucking bamboo. I've done it. And I've learned now I'm going to take some breaths. And if I do feel that way, because again, we spoke about this before, it can happen, right? And to say that that's wrong and to then be getting fearful of that, and it's just going to cause the same thing. But just if that comes up, let go. Understand it's there. Hey, it's okay that I feel this way. Let it be. Let that emotion go. And then from there, I'm like, it's pretty nice. It's raining outside. It's beautiful. Enjoy the present moment. Enjoy the process. Enjoy this conversation that we're having right now, no matter how many views it gets, no matter where it goes. Now, obviously, I see and I'm working towards a vision where it's going to make a big impact on the world, and I love that. But let's have fun right now. Let's enjoy this life that we have.
That's it. You know, people think, I think the mind that's been like conditioned to this one day, this achievement's going to come. And then like, you know, it's in the movies. Like the person struggles and struggles and struggles, and then he knocks the guy out or hits the touchdown or shoots that 3-pointer right at the buzzer. And then his whole life changes in the movies, right? Like everything's different. Now he's like praised by everyone. And like he goes from frown to smile. Like it makes it look like he's actually happy. I think people have been conditioned that way. And you know, ever since we're kids, that's conditioned into us. And also lineage patterns and parents also thinking that way and thinking that you need to go to school and be this type of thing and be that type of thing to be happy and to be successful, all these patterns, right? But really, to think that any sort of achievement or any sort of outcome is going to change the way I feel is the illusion. And I constantly remind myself, bro, it's not like I figured it all out. Just the other day, I was refreshing my social media to see if I'm getting more views, bro. Literally. Like just a few days ago, I was doing that. Maybe even yesterday. I choose to know when that was, but I was just recently doing that. And I'm reminding myself, here, it's not about that, man. It's about imagine if instead of focusing on this, I could be focusing on what video I'm going to make next and how I'm going to make an impact. Like, right? So, but it's also another piece of it is now that I already have the goal, now that I already have the outcome, am I the same Yair I am today? No, I'm someone else. I'm a different person. I'm an evolved version of myself, right? That is where the fun is creating that character. And it's not the 5 million views or the $5 million or the 5 awesome friends I'm going to have or whatever people are looking for that's going to make them happy. It's who they've become to attract that new circumstance that will fulfill them, because all we have is who we are. Like that's our only existence. Like it's our perspective, it's our lens, it's how we see everything. So who I'm becoming is who I'm living with, and the only person I'm going to live with the rest of my life is me. So I better start loving me, and loving me is creating who I choose to become.
Yes, so many of us are trying to create this external reality that's going to shift our internal emotions. And when we get that thing, whatever it is, the business, the girl, the this, like it'll create that excitement for a little bit, you know, a couple days or a few hours before we set our targets to what's next. And then we can, if we continue doing that, we perpetually live from this place of lack. And it's just, I feel like it's so backwards, because at the end of the day, our goal is to live a joyful, fulfilled life. That's really, I feel like, a beautiful thing. That's what we're all looking for. And so we're trying to shift all these external, and by doing all that shifting and trying so hard to do it, we're literally sacrificing what we choose because we're trying to go at this backwards way of doing it. So when we just shift it around and work on the internal, work on the personal growth, make growth the goal, look at the fear, go through it, build the confidence, have fun. Then coming back to the choices. Do I leave the business? Do I leave the girl? Do I stay with the girl? It doesn't matter. It literally does not matter, because as long as we make the choice, as long as we're growing, we're on our mission. We're gaining confidence.
Well, it matters.
It matters. It matters because it creates matter. It's going to be different. But as long as we're making the choices and we're getting into our yeses and we're being confident, either way, we are going to get the result that we choose, which is we are going to grow. We're going to learn through the process. So maybe one way you go, you would have made a couple $1 million extra. But guess what? If you keep operating from that perspective of making the right choice, you might have made the $2 million, but you might be completely unhappy. And if I told you, yeah, you can have $2 million, you can have $5 million. If I told you right now, you got $10 million, you have all the views in the world, you can have everything like this, but you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. Who's going to make that trade?
Some people will, bro. Some people will. People that are that stuck in the illusion.
But I'm saying if I guarantee,
they won't believe you, bro. They won't believe you that they're going to be. You see what I'm saying? Yeah,
that is true.
That's the type of person that would say yes to that.
And you know what? If that's the person, it's okay, right? Because we all have our choices in life. We all have our way to do it. But to someone like that, I just say, like, let's really just tone it back and really understand. Take a second to understand, like, what we're really all looking for in life. And if that's what you choose, if you choose for those things over,
I don't think that person would be watching this right now, to be honest.
Maybe.
But I'm just saying.
Who knows? Maybe they come across, and I believe everything happens for a reason. And maybe they're scrolling YouTube, Instagram, whatever right now, maybe not feeling in the best place, and something we say could touch them. So I truly do believe that.
And look, I mean, what I'd say to someone that's going through like that phase is like, that's great. I still go through it every freaking day to some degree, right? I mean, like when Evan's introducing me, like it's really nice of him to say all these things. And yes, I've made a lot of great choices and I've grown a lot, but man, I still feel pain. I still feel fear. I still feel sadness. I still have things in my life that I feel resistance to doing that I'm working through. And it's a continuous journey. I'm still a beginner.
What I find so interesting is, like, we will continue to feel those. Those are part of the human experience. And that's why I come back and I appreciate and love you so much. And I mean, I love you regardless, but why I appreciate your growth so much is having that beginner mindset, but also being okay with those emotions and saying, like, hey, yeah, I got a lot more to learn. I got more to go through. But your acceptance for those emotions is absolutely incredible. And that's part of that growth.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like if I'm going to give like a really basic example of what you just said is like the gym or working out in general, right? Working out brings pain, right? Like, freaking do bicep curls, right? It hurts the bicep. Or I go on a run and my legs hurt and I feel tired, right? It can be painful. It can be, there's a certain level of discomfort with working out, right? And in the past, when I wasn't working out consistently, I was playing tennis and doing things that were fun, but just straight up going to the gym or going on runs. I mean, dude, before I was like 20 or 19 years old, the most I ever ran long distance was a mile. And that was hard. Like I was so in complaints about it, right? But as soon as I started embracing discomfort and embracing pain and seeing that that's a beautiful part of my process and becoming who I choose to become, well, then now working out becomes easy. Well, now I actually love working out. Like the complete opposite, because I see the blessing in it. I see the beauty in it. So that's like a micro scale of just exercise, which is a big thing of our lives too. But the person that hates feeling pain and hates feeling the discomfort and doesn't see the beauty in it is the person that's obese, overweight, diabetes, all this crap, because they're avoiding it. But embracing it brings health, vitality, love, pride, energy.
Yeah. This comes back to these natural human emotions and experiences that we all have, which includes the fear, the pain, and there's pain either way, no matter what way we go in life. So we can either have the pain and shame and guilt of not facing the pain and shame and guilt, and that leads to not going to the gym. What that creates is a nice big belly. It creates it creates an unabundance in wealth and vitality and energy in these things. Or when the pain comes up and like, I don't feel like doing this, you say, well, I'll make that trade. I'll just go and face it right now and then have the rest of your day like with a little dopamine rush from the workout that you did, or the sound that we figured out, or the podcast that now we get to sit down and have this freaking energizing conversation that's going to create this incredible wave of energy through the rest of the day for us, for viewers that are listening to it. And that's been created from repetitively facing fears, facing a little bit of pain. And as we face it, the pain kind of goes down. It's like, you just get through it. And it's not terrible.
I really think the pain is the resistance of it. Because once I do it, there's no pain in that. I mean, it's like now we're sitting here, it's easy, right? The pain comes when it's like, oh, should I do this? The second there's any of that right, wrong resistance, that's the pain. So that pain is there to show us, hey, you're resisting right now. Okay, do you choose to continue going deeper and deeper into this pain and misery? Or do you just choose to walk forward anyways? And that's what it is.
The resistance, the pain is in us thinking about it. Oh, I don't want to do it, whatever. I was listening to a podcast with J. Cole recently. So J. Cole has become, I just started listening to him. As I've gotten into rapping, I started listening to him. He's become a big inspiration of mine with the messaging and what he talks about in his rap music. But he was talking about facing, like he's creating this amazing music, this beautiful music. But he says not every day he wants to get up and make the music. Not every day he gets up and like wants to do this. But he faces it. He conquers it. He gets in and he does what he's committed himself to doing. And when he gets in it, he finds the joy in it. He finds the passion. And that comes back to what I was saying is finding the things that we choose yes to. Because if we're so disciplined and there's like a no and there's like a no reason and then like a fucking no purpose to it, when we're doing those activities, if there's nothing there, it's going to be a bit more difficult to like find the things that we love in it, right? But with this, like this, for example, for me, dude, we get to sit down and have this conversation. Like, dude, if I didn't feel like having this conversation today, I sure as hell would be finding beauty in it and enjoyment in it right now. And same thing across the board, because there's these elements of creativity, of beauty, and I'm following my inner yes, I'm following my guidance, and it's telling me, Evan, yes. Evan, continuously telling me, Evan, yes. So it's just really cool. And so for people listening, I just say, hey, go and do things you say yes to, right? And forget what the rest of the world says. If you want to teach kids, teach kids. You want to go volunteer doing something, volunteer doing something. Whatever you want to do, whatever's fine, you find joy and passion in. You don't need to make this huge commitment, this huge crazy thing about it. Maybe start with something just small. Maybe start with, hey, like I did a summer camp. I was like, how I got into a lot of this, I was feeling pretty uninspired in work and in real estate, as we had mentioned. I was just so focused on that. And I was like, you know what? I love hanging out with kids. I love playing with kids. It's fun. It's fulfilling. It's just joyful. So I went and started volunteering at a kids summer camp once a week. Made the commitment, hey, I'll do it once a week. So go find something, art, creativity, photography, social media. I mean, nature walks, whatever. But find something you love for the sheer love of doing it. Make a little tiny commitment on it to start, because it takes a little bit to, I feel like it takes, builds reps. So don't set some fucking pie in the sky thing where you gotta like it's just that where it's a daunting task. But I say pick a yes and just start doing little things. Start a one small commitment where you build confidence. You're like, you know what, I can do it, and build on that. Have you had experience with that? Like starting small and building. Like what's your thought process on that?
Yeah, that's how everything starts, right? I mean, that's the way confidence is built. That's the way trust is built in any relationship. Like, you know, if I'm going to go into a business partnership with someone, all right, let's take it slow. Let's go step by step. Let's agree to meet at a certain time and keep that agreement. Let's agree to do another thing and keep that agreement. Okay, and then from there we start to build trust and build confidence in each other. But, you know, it's not about just jumping in and trying to have it all figured out up front. In any task I do, in any endeavor I move forward on, or in any part of my life I'm choosing to improve in, I take it step by step. It's like what we said about before with the yeses and the nos, right? Oh, I have a yes for this. Do what's in front of me right now. I don't need to know what's going to be after that, but I have a yes for this. So do what's in front of me right now. Trust. Even if I feel a little scared, even if I feel a little bit of resistance, if I have a yes for it, do it. And then as soon as I do it, guess what happens? The next thing happens, and the next thing happens, and the next thing unfolds, and the next thing unfolds. That's what trust is. As I walk forward in the path, the next step of the path unfolds for me. But I can't see the next step until I take this step. One step at a time, man. You know, it's funny, if we look at like a staircase, I may be able to see the step all the way on the top. Like if we look at the step all the way on the top of the ladder, on the top of the staircase, that's my vision. That's where like I see myself. I could see it, but I can't step on that thing until I step on the first one. I could see where I'm going to end up, kind of like see the picture, but the only way I can get to it and actually experience it is when I first experience the first step. And that first step may be making that phone call, having that conversation you don't want to have, going to the gym when you don't want to.
Here, what's a big choice that you've been toying with currently that maybe now is the time to make a choice?
Choose to know, man. I feel like I'm doing so many new things right now that I'm really focused on the new things I'm doing. What comes is, like in the coaching modality I'm in, you know, a desire I've had for a while is to lead my own classes for young adults and teenagers. Like that's a huge desire. So taking some sort of action directly correlated to that is probably my next thing for sure. Making my videos, doing all these new things are definitely is me becoming the character to do that too. Like it's all correlated to that as well, of like leading classes for young adults. But yeah, some sort of action step directly leading to that is my next step that I've definitely had resistance to. And I choose to know what it even is that like will require it. But so far that's a vision I have for myself, and doing all these other things I had resistance to doing is a part of me becoming the person that will lead those classes. So yeah, going and talking with girls, going and interviewing people, and just doing things like out of the familiar zone, you know, because there's a lot of, like, for example, with the girl thing, there's a lot of young men that are very, feel shy, and they're looking to shift it into confidence. So first it starts with me. So what can I do to really build confidence, to build trust within myself, and starting to take those action steps. But yeah, definitely, if there's something in my mind that I choose to step into, is leading my own classes, man. Like seeing myself in this chair, 15 kids, young men, young adults, young women around me, and I'm leading a class on mindset, spirituality, personal growth. That's one of the next steps for me, for sure.
Beautiful. That I see it. I feel it.
Thank you. How about you? What's your next? What are you stepping into next? I choose to know if it's a choice, because in mine example, there's many choices I'm making that lead up to that vision. But what's your vision that you see for yourself moving forward in one aspect? Obviously, there's many things, but what's something you see for down the road?
I see the blossoming of this podcast. I see the blossoming of music that I'm creating, and this actually, like, it's been something I've been doing for years already, which is the personal growth and the spirituality. It's exactly what you had mentioned before about how I said I'd made it to the 50-yard line, right? But that was talking about this like Alberry external venture. But where I made it to the 100-yard line is in the emotional growth, in the letting go, in the changing the way that I perceive the world. And guess what? As soon as I got to the 100-yard line, I'm starting back at yard line 1. It's the beginner mentality. And I'm continuing to do that. And again, part of consciously why I'm creating this podcast and the music is those things are so in line with the personal growth, and something that I've realized that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. That me and you are I feel like so aligned with understanding how valuable the spiritual and personal growth is. So to me, creating manifestations on the external world for naturally things that I love and care and is the overall glasses that I view life from, that's where I'm investing the year. I think we got a lot out of this, you and I and the listeners too. So I'm gonna leave it off with one final question. I'm gonna make this a thing on the fulfilled being as the final question. I feel like gratitude is such a powerful force. It's just a way of feeling, of being. What are you grateful for?
Grateful to be here with you, brother. Right now.